Yep. And there goes my coffee. Perfect. Hey, at least it's not on a desk that has an expensive computer underneath it. Y'all wonder why ZZ isn't here as often as he used to be. Anyway, I guess I'll work on that here in a minute, but the camera's on, I'll do the intro. Not a lot to say for this one. The JW broadcasting this month is pretty wild, but I did want to preface it with one thing because it's something I mentioned I think in the last video that I uploaded, but Jehovah's Witnesses get this very irritated sense about them whenever they hear the word cult. They really hate being described as a cult, and even on their FAQ page on their website, they do talk about, are Jehovah's Witnesses a cult? And you know, the very first source to go to when evaluating whether or not a particular group is a cult is that group. So their FAQ, it's a joke, their FAQ section, are Jehovah's Witnesses a cult? And they start by defining what a cult actually means. And they do this by saying something of a cult is being new or unorthodox religion. Jehovah's Witnesses have not invented a new religion. On the contrary, we pattern our worship after the first century Christians, whose example and teachings were recorded in the Bible. So whenever they have rules about tattoos or having beards or what kind of clothes you wear, what kind of music you listen to, and different things like that, you can pretty much just reject that immediately because they certainly did come up with a new religion that broke off from Adventists, and they don't follow exclusively what the Bible has to say. So that's just a bunch of nonsense. And then their other line of reasoning is some think of a cult as being a dangerous religious sect with a human leader. Jehovah's Witnesses do not look to any human as their leader. Rather, we adhere to the standard that Jesus set for his followers when he stated, "Your leader is one, the Christ." So, the Jehovah's Witnesses are very happy to tell you in their "Are Jehovah's Witnesses a Cult?" FAQ section that they do not have a human leader. Now we're going to watch this video, and by the end of it, I want you to be able to answer the question, do you think the Jehovah's Witnesses have a human leader? Boy howdy hey, strap in for a wild ride. Hello and welcome back to the JW Thoughts channel. My name is Wally, and today we are looking at the July 2026 JW Broadcasting episode. Quickly before we get into it, don't forget to drop a like on the video. ZZ's here and he very much appreciates it, and by extension I appreciate it as well, and it helps to get out to more people on YouTube. So if you care about Jehovah's Witnesses and want to see the PR shift sort of happening through the broader media scape, hey, dropping a like on the video is a little tiny way that you can help accomplish that goal. So with all of that being said, let's jump right into this talk by Robert Lucioni, who's got himself a fancy little beard action, and he wants to tell us all about who we should be following.
Do you know the way to go? Our theme for this discussion is based on Joshua chapter 3 and verse 4. The setting is that the nation of Israel was about to enter the promised land after waiting for some 40 years. However, the next phase would not be easy. It would require much effort, faith, and courage to enjoy the blessings of the promised land. You notice they needed to follow the Ark of the Covenant to know which way to go. Now, while this may have seemed obvious, the nation of Israel had difficulties following direction. They often focused negatively on the men who were leading them and let pride or desire for independence influence their decisions. Now, why is this relevant today? Well, we too are at a pivotal point in human history. All indications suggest that we are deep in the last days and could soon see the beginning of the Great Tribulation leading to Armageddon. Following direction will be vital. How will we know the way to go? Well, just as in Joshua's day, it's imperative to identify how Jehovah is leading his people and follow it.
So the people in biblical times received supernatural signs from a supernatural entity that gave them evidence that the person that was claiming to be used by this supernatural entity could be evaluated by their ability to do these supernatural things. They look over at a body of water and say, turn to blood, it turns to blood. They look at a bunch of cows in a field and they say, make a bunch of flies cover the whole land. They look at the sun and they say, let's make the whole thing dark. That'd be goofy, so let's make the whole thing dark. Or they say, okay, every firstborn in this city is going to die tonight unless you go and kill a sheep and spread its blood all over the door of your house. And everyone that doesn't spread the blood on the door of their house, your firstborn dies, right? So you have a claim from a person that can demonstrate their supernatural ability. And plus, like in this instance, with following the Ark of the Covenant, there's this pillar of smoke that is like you can't explain it. It's like, whoa, wow, there's a pillar of smoke and there's nothing burning. What's going on here? You have some type of evidence and you can follow that evidence. Now let's just put this in some modern day terms and keep it in the back of your mind, I suppose. Now say I want you to buy some anti-aging cream. I don't know, go with that. And I have all of these claims that, oh boy, all of the fights and all of the stress and anxiety and times that you've manipulated your face to cause all these wrinkles, I can get rid of those. You'll look 15 years younger in 7 days. And you say, well, I want to look 15 years younger in 7 days. But before I buy this product, what's the evidence? What's the demonstration that it actually does the thing you say? And my answer to that is to show you an AI-generated PowerPoint. Now, how many people are going to fall for that? Probably a few, but not very many. And that's because they understand that an AI-generated presentation is generally associated with someone that doesn't want to show you the truth, or someone that's late. It's generally associated with a scammer, someone that's trying to get you to believe something that isn't real. It's a low effort, low risk scam. So if someone is using the known documented tactics that a scammer uses, they're going to have a really difficult time trying to sell or get people to follow them, because that is usually not going to penetrate people's critical thinking. Sure, it might capture people that lack critical thinking, but for those a little bit more skeptical, it's really never going to work, because they're going to look at it and say, oh, there are 1,000 companies that are companies in air quotes, that are trying to use AI to get me to purchase this anti-aging skincare cream. So if there's 1,001, why am I just going to randomly roll the dice and just pick one of them and hope that it works? Answer is, you're not going to do that. So why am I even bringing all this up? Well, at the very beginning, when we talked about what did the Jehovah's Witnesses say, was something that was an identifying mark of cults: having human leaders. So if there are human leaders, that would very much mimic a cult. Now, another known thing about cults is cults never come out and say, hey, just wanted to let you know I'm starting this cult. We bought some land out there in Utah, and we're going to need you and a lot of other women. If you know any other women, bring them all along. Bring them all. Come on down to Utah there, broski. They're not going to announce to the world. It's not going to be part of their advertising campaign that they're starting a cult. They're going to be like, no, what are you talking about? We're just exercising blah, 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 blah. So keep that in the back of your mind. If it walks like a cult, if it talks like a cult, if it acts like a cult, it's probably a cult. Similar to an AI scam, where it's trying to mimic something real to trick and lie to people.
Let's begin with our first point. How do we identify the way to go? Well, during their time in the wilderness under Moses and Aaron, the nation of Israel had clear manifestation of Jehovah's direction. We remember by the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. However, Jehovah now changed how he would provide direction. It required faith on the part of the nation to acknowledge that Joshua was now the one Jehovah was using. By having the Ark of the Covenant go before the people, Joshua was ensuring that the people knew that it really was still Jehovah who was leading them. Whom is Jehovah using today? The faithful and discreet slave. Who are they? The governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses makes up this group today. They provide the spiritual food, direction, and practical help for Jehovah's Witnesses around the world.
According to Watchtower, one of the ways you can identify a cult is if it has human leadership. And then they show you their human leadership. This is the equivalent of the AI scam artist saying, no. But my results are from a real AI customer. And that real AI customer has aged or de-aged by 10 years. It's a phenomenal product. So do you want to sign up for the $15 a month program or the $50 a month program? Like, it is so absurd to anyone outside of the bubble. And that's the important distinction here, because if you're someone that's already signed up for the AI, the scam, you're going to be able, no, those are real results. No, this is a product that's working on me. And everyone's just like, okay, sorry you're so easily parting way with your money. Wish you wouldn't do that, but I guess it's your time. Do what you like. It is absurd to anyone on the outside. But that's the hard thing with cults. That's the hard thing with a lack of critical thinking, is when you're inside it, you just don't see it that way. But something that can rattle this delusion is when even inside that little bubble, that echo chamber, those echoes that you're hearing start to sound kind of strange, kind of alarming, a little bit weird, you might say.
Now we know that. We've considered this scripture many times. But have we thought deeply regarding why we believe that? The Enjoy Life Forever book includes lesson 54, the role of the faithful and discreet slave. In that lesson, it asks our Bible students, what proves to you that Jesus is leading the governing body? And do you believe that the governing body is the faithful and discreet slave? These are serious questions. How would you answer them? Perhaps you'd find it helpful to consider this chapter, including the Explore section, in an upcoming family worship or personal study project.
This was something very weird to hear in my Jehovah's Witness brain. Hearing him refer to a little pamphlet, a brochure that you would use to teach someone else some very basic Jehovah's Witness truths, and pointing to that and say, this is very serious. How do you know that the governing body is being led by God? And it's very vibes feeling. It's not facts feeling. And when I was a Jehovah's Witness, I would have wanted, and I would have shown you, how I actually came up with that. Well, Jerusalem was destroyed in 607 BCE, and this was the beginning of a prophecy about this gigantic tree that, was to fall over and then be banded together for 1,500. That number doesn't seem right. No, math isn't mathing. 2,520 years. And after that time, the bands would be taken off, and yippee-ki-yay, Jesus comes down from heaven invisibly and starts his inspection process. And during that inspection process, he's looking around on earth to find some capable goobers to do his will. And he decides on the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Pennsylvania. And this happens to correlate to a prophecy in Revelation chapter 11 about some person in a wilderness screaming and crying and yapping about God knows what, but, eventually they feel a little bit better and the restoration begins. And that is when, in 1919, God chose the Watchtower organization to represent him on earth. I would have showed you that. And it's weird to see someone give a talk that's meant for Jehovah's Witnesses, but for a critical, some might say the most critical aspect of their faith. Who is leading? Who is the one true religion? How do we identify them? They're using something so basic and simple that you would present to someone that doesn't know anything about Jehovah's Witnesses. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. Well, how do I know that the governing body is being led by God? Because they say they are?
Now, does the governing body, or do the members of the governing body, do you see yourselves as modern-day disciples, the modern-day equivalent of Jesus' disciples?
We certainly hope to follow Jesus and be his disciples.
And do you see yourselves as Jehovah God's spokespeople on earth?
That, I think, would seem to be quite presumptuous to say that we are the only spokesperson that God is using.
Now, again, obviously, this is all pretty absurd because like I said before, if you're on the outside of the bubble, on the outside of the echo chamber, you can just zoom in and look at this and be like, so Joseph Rutherford got thrown in prison, and when all of his legal troubles kind of resolved themselves in 1919, that just so happens to line up with when God chooses the Watchtower Bible Tract Society after the death of the founder, and now I'm trying to take over the thing, but had a bunch of legal problems. That makes sense to anyone on the outside, that's examining this from a calm, objective viewpoint. But even if you're on the inside of it, to see someone get up and not even refer to 1914 or 1919, none of that. Just, how do you know? Well, most people are, I think, getting further away from those doctrinal explanations that remind them of why they're a Jehovah's Witness. I think they're getting removed from what gave them their faith. And the governing body or whoever's making these types of decisions is just banking on the fact that that faith is so solidified that hopefully nothing could rattle it. But stuff like this is the reason people start being like, that was kind of weird. It's usually not like this big revelation. It feels that way, but it's usually these types of little things that sort of build up like plaque on your teeth until you get a cavity. And this is some plaque.
Now, why is that important? Well, think about it. If the nation of Israel was going to follow men carrying the Ark of the Covenant into a river at flood stage, they needed to have complete confidence that Jehovah was guiding these men. Well, likewise, if we're going to follow the governing body as we move into difficult days ahead, we need to have complete confidence that Jehovah is the one taking the lead by means of his Son, Jesus Christ.
Tell me right now 3 things that you have complete, absolute, 100% confidence in, and not death and taxes. Honestly, what do you have absolute, complete confidence in? Now, if someone were to say, I have complete confidence in this.
Nor is an apology needed for not getting it exactly right previously. We understand this is how Jehovah operates. He reveals matters gradually when it is needed. And also, the governing body is neither inspired nor infallible, and so it can err in doctrinal matters or in organizational direction.
Would you think that that person is sane and rational, or in desperate need of an intervention? And the most shocking aspect of this is I know what it feels like to be a Jehovah's Witness and someone tells me I'm in a cult. And the reason I would give is the one I was trained to give. Well, we don't have human leaders. And Robert is telling Jehovah's Witnesses with no mixed words, no subterfuge, nothing. He's saying, you have human leaders, and you have to follow them with complete confidence.
Well, likewise, if we're going to follow the governing body as we move into difficult days ahead, we need to have complete confidence.
Again, that's some plaque.
So what's the answer to our first question? How do we identify the way to go? Similar to the faithful Israelites, we follow the ones that Jehovah's using to lead us. That brings us to our second point. How do we stay on the way? Now, it may be easy to follow direction when we agree with the direction given. However, it's more difficult when we're asked to do something that doesn't quite fit with what we think should be done. What do we do then? Now, what's the lesson? When we receive direction, even if it seems unnecessary or we have a different opinion, do we trust Jehovah enough to follow it? If you receive clear direction, follow it if there's no scriptural law being disregarded. You never know if Jehovah's maneuvering matters for a reason. And even if not, He'll reward you for your loyalty.
Throughout my years of doing this, every so often, I'll hear something that I have to replay like 10 times because I feel like I'm the crazy person. It's like, I think they would never say that. I must be misunderstanding what this dude is trying to convey. But I don't think I'm misunderstanding what this dude is trying to convey. What he's saying is, you need to be loyalty because Jehovah might be maneuvering things in a certain way. And even if he's not, He'll reward your loyalty. So, am I to assume that the governing body, who says they make mistakes, that doesn't apologize for them, and is going to continue to make mistakes and do things that aren't biblical or seem unnecessary or absurd, from what you're telling me, I'm supposed to just do it, irregardless of whether or not that direction actually came from God? Like, he is saying it doesn't actually matter if the direction comes from God or not. That is immaterial to the equation of what the person should do.
You never know if Jehovah's maneuvering matters for a reason. And even if not, He'll reward you for your loyalty.
The person should be loyal to the governing body, first and foremost. And as a benefit of that, God's going to be happy with you, so He'll reward your loyalty, and that reward comes in the form of, I don't know, a pat on the back and a go get 'em tiger. I'm not really sure. He doesn't really go into any details about that, but suppose He doesn't want us to get bogged down with those kinds of details. But what a weird thing to put into the echo chamber of Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, mind you, again, a lot of times when I'm watching these broadcasts, I'm kind of glazed over. Like, I'm like, okay, what is this guy even talking about? And I'll read some of y'all's comments and I'm like, oh man, how did I miss that? That's actually a really good point. That's a really good insight. I'm surprised I didn't catch that. But that's just like a natural thing of listening to these types of broadcasts. But man, I was locked in on this one and I don't think I missed it. What a weird thing to say. And again, most people will glaze over it and completely miss it. But some people will hear it. Some people will pick out that little thing in the echo chamber that's zigging when everything else is zagging. Like, wait, what did that dude just say?
How do we keep up? Be careful not to let disappointments, persecutions, or problems cause us to stop or slow down in following the direction of those taking the lead. For example, we may respond immediately if we hear something directly from the governing body. But what do we do when we receive direction from our local elders or the circuit overseer? We know their personalities, we see their imperfections. Does that cause us to stop or slow down? Now, at times, one's become disgruntled with decisions that are made or how things are handled in the organization. And this has caused some to slow down, become inactive, or stop associating with the congregation. Sadly, they fail to understand that, as in the nation of Israel, things will not be managed perfectly because of the fact that all who are being used are imperfect. So where will such ones go to find perfection? The only perfect human was Jesus himself. So we have imperfect humans trying their best to follow the direction of their perfect leader.
Every 2 weeks or so, someone will comment on a video that I upload, and the comment will be, can vary, but its general framework is, I understand that you're hurt by the Jehovah's Witnesses and you have some problems, but can I ask you a question? What else do you turn to for life's answers to big problems? Where else do you find X, Y, or Z? Or, I understand you don't believe the Jehovah's Witnesses now, but what do you believe now? Who do you follow now? Or someone will just come out and say, okay, I'm understanding that the Jehovah's Witnesses are wrong, but where should I go? What should I do? What should I turn to for advice? And it's like, brother, the option for not buying an AI scam is to not say, well, look at all these other AI scams. Am I just supposed to buy a different one of these? I mean, they're all just imperfect organizations pretending to be led by God. So you may as well stick with my imperfect organization that's pretending to be led by God. Like the alternative to not getting scammed isn't to say, well, I need to find a different scam. It's just to reject them all because of the evidence. The evidence, hey, there are thousands of these people using these AI ads and fake testimonials to sell me some scam product. I'll just not buy any of them. This man is doing the Lord's work. This is a crazy thing to say. And I have a question. If you're a Jehovah's Witness and you're watching this and you've managed to make it this far, I do suspect that there are a few Jehovah's Witnesses that are, picking this up and watching it. And I'm self-aware. I understand the optics. I probably just appear as some very angry, experiencing some sort of masochistic fetish by even watching the JW broadcast. This succulent-lipped, strange diction, fingernail-painting goofball on the internet. I get the optics of it, okay? But I'm asking this with the most sincerity, I promise. How does hearing something like that make you feel as a Jehovah's Witness? To hear someone that is in that upper echelon of the Watchtower sort of power or decision-making structure, if you will. How does it feel to hear someone that high up basically say that, well, yes, these are imperfect people trying their best, but where else are you going to go to a different imperfect person that's trying their best, or another imperfect person that's trying their best, stick with my imperfect person that is trying their best. And there's no reasons, there's no Bible here. This, to me, like when I'm putting, and that's why I asked the question, and if there's, I'll try and look for the comments. If you are a Jehovah's Witness, I'm genuinely curious how like this makes you feel, because when I try and think about my first 26 years of my life that I spent being a Jehovah's Witness, and I think this feels weird. It feels weird to not have this scriptural dissertation about all of the evidence and the facts and the prophecies and how confident I can be because here it is in the Bible. This just feels like giving up. This just feels like throwing your hands up in the air and saying, well, what else are you going to do? Go follow some other Protestant or Adventist or Mormon who's just a sincere Bible-believing Christian that thinks that they are correct and doing the best that they can? What, are you going to go follow one of them? I mean, we too are sincere Bible-believing Christians trying to do the best we can with what we have, but we're right because, trust me, bro, I would really like to be a fly on the wall or inside the mind, be a little parasite, like inside the brain of current believing Jehovah's Witnesses listening to this. Because I'm fascinated to know, how does that make you feel?
Peter and the other disciples may not have understood what Jesus was talking about any more than the others did, but they were convinced that there was nowhere else to go. The same is true today. Never forget what you have. Where else will you go for the guidance, spiritual food, and comfort that Jehovah provides through his organization? There is nowhere else to go. Don't let the things you do not understand blind you to what you have and what you're a part of. So what's the point of this discussion? All indications are that we are deep in the last days and on the verge of entering a future we've long awaited. Like Israel standing at Jordan's banks, obedience and following the direction may mean our lives. Now is the time to be fully convinced of how Jehovah directs his organization. Don't let disappointments or imperfections of others slow you down. Regularly remind yourself of the privilege it is to be part of this imperfect, yes, but unified, worldwide organization.
I don't know if this is right or wrong, but in my opinion, incredulity should never be the foundation or the basis for positive action. And just because you don't want to or can't understand something doesn't mean that that thing that you understand should be the reason for doing, something. I guess an easier way to, let me try and put that in a way that's more digestible. If you are doing a little bit of cliff jumping, you're standing at the edge of the cliff and it's like a 20-foot drop or whatever, are you going to say, well, I'm not sure if there's a boulder there that I could break my leg on, but I don't really want to find out, so we're just going to let it rip? Or do you say, this could be fun. It is a little bit dangerous, so let me take the extra 10 minutes and go swim down, get a general idea of how deep the area is, talk to other people, maybe they've done it, maybe they have some insights, so that way I can take an unknown and make it a known, and then base my action off of what I know, not off of what I don't know. That just seems like a pretty reasonable way to live your life. This is just saying, hey, I know none of this makes sense, but you should still take the positive action of believing it anyway. This reminds me of reading the SpaceX prospectus, before they're trying to IPO. Maybe this is boring to people, but I was talking about AI earlier, so we made in for a penny, in for a pound. But I was reading this 400-page thing, and there was a part in it that really made me giggle, because like a week or two before, Elon Musk had publicly said that Grok, their main XAI model, needed to be rebuilt from the ground up. Oh man, it wasn't built correctly, so we got to redo the whole thing. And then in their prospectus, when they're going to financial institutions and looking for a valuation, and whoever these knuckleheads were that were providing that valuation, that's either delusion or corruption. Take your pick. I don't really see a different way around that. But in that prospectus, they're talking about Grok as if it's this frontier leading model. Oh man, it's just so amazing. It's so incredible. And we're going to be scooping up all the data from X as well. The thing's just so powerful, it's unbeatable. Like, didn't just a week ago Elon freaking Musk say that the thing needed to be rebuilt from the foundation? But now out of the other side of your mouth, you're saying something that is diametrically opposed? So when you're evaluating whether or not you are going to invest in SpaceX, you're like, okay, well, I'm hoping to make a return on this investment. You're going to look at that and say, do I want to allow incredulity, something I don't understand, like how the thing actually works? Like, well, what is SpaceX? Is it just the space rocket company? Or is it other things as well? If you're trying to actually understand it, that makes sense to me. So I don't get what this desperate plea is that is the opposite of everything I know about how the world actually works. He's trying to desperately plead to people that the story, the idea of Jehovah's Witnesses, the concept is so powerful. Oh, man, it's like the SpaceX prospectus, it's got all the cool pictures of rockets and yeah, we're going to do all this stuff and we're going to build data centers in space. And you're like, huh? How does that freaking work? But it's like, are you going to buy the story or do you want to just invest in reality? And at the end of the day, this is not just an investment of your capital. This is an investment of your life. Everything. When you become a Jehovah's Witness, your life isn't the same anymore. It affects who you talk to, who you don't talk to, who you consider your family, what you watch, what you listen to, what you read, where you go, how you spend your free time, like how you treat your family, how you treat your kids, how you raise them, the values that you are imparting onto that future generation. All of this is affected by being a Jehovah's Witness. And his answer is, well, we're not really sure. I don't know. Again, this is just a weird talk. I don't know why Barack Obama, I've been doing that a lot lately. Maybe just the disintegration of my brain. But anyway, normally I talk about like the entire broadcast, but I've been yapping about this one till the cows come home. But I found it very interesting. One of the more interesting talks that I've heard in quite some time from EXJW broadcasting. So pretty cool stuff. Anyway, with all of that being said, stay safe, be kind, and don't forget to spend more time loving the things you love than hating the things you hate. Now go out there and have a good ass day.